Lots of optimism for this cattle market here in the heart of the calving season. Hi everybody, Coulter Brown here from the Northern Ag Network with this month's update on our livestock markets. Once again, we get to talk about cattle prices that are pretty well higher across the board. After years of tightening cattle supplies, it's finally coming to fruition in this market. We know it's been a long, difficult winter for a lot of producers, but as the snow gives way to green grass, it's only going to feed more optimism. First, we want to thank the sponsors of this month's report. Thank you to Ag Risk Advisors for their continued support. They've recently launched a new podcast called At the Table, so be sure to listen to Ag Risk Advisors about PRF and LRP. You can find more information at agriskadvisors.com. Well, as we get into our cattle markets here, the proverbial chickens have really come home to roost. These prices working higher. You know, the cattle cycle was stretched out by the pandemic, and then that was followed by 2 years of drought, and cattle inventories moved lower than anyone really thought they were going to, but now we're sure seeing it across this market. I almost said feeder cattle futures had a fairly quiet month, but really that's not accurate. We saw feeder cattle futures again pick up several dollars this month. Now they did slow down a little bit in the middle of March. That was largely a function of corn prices moving back up, but still we've got stronger feeder prices. Do want to talk about corn for a second here. They're going to influence the feeder futures over the next couple of months. Expectations are for an increase in corn production this year. CattleFax says if Mother Nature cooperates, stocks to use for corn will increase, and December corn futures could move in the low $5 money in the second half of the year. I compared back to last year as we talk about this feeder market, and the futures at this time, April feeders were at 164.5. Now they're 20% higher, and boy, you look at those fall feeder contracts at over the 220 mark, that's going to imply 6-weight steers somewhere in the 235, 240, even 250 money. I'm not saying that's where it's going to be, but certainly looks like a strong possibility at this point. As we move the conversation over to the live cattle futures, we did see a bit more effect from the disruption with uncertainty in outside markets, particularly with the banking sector, some of the challenges we saw there. Live cattle futures mostly steady over the last month here. They did pick up some ground at the end of March, so glad to see that. The summer months did see the most pressure, and that's something we are expecting to continue to see. Not a real concern for the market, just seasonal pressure. We're going to see seasonally higher fed cattle supplies, and that's going to turn some leverage over to the packing sector and going to work a little bit lower on these prices through the summer. But boy, once we get to the fall and certainly into next winter, these fed cattle prices could be pushing record levels. The cash cattle market is reflecting the optimism we've seen in the live cattle futures and the fact that feed yards are picking up more leverage from packers. The live cattle market steady to $1 better over the last month, averaging 164.5 right now. Dress trade picking up even more ground, averaging 265. Cattle on feed inventories move tighter once again, and that's likely to continue to be the story through most of 2023. Placements continue to come in below year-ago levels, so we'll likely continue to talk about tighter cattle on feed inventories. As we move the conversation over to our local auction markets across the region, that's really where things start to get pretty exciting here. The prospect of better moisture and better forage conditions has really increased demand for cattle to go to grass with, and there just ain't very many of those green grass-weight calves left. But also calves destined for the feed yard are finding strong demand as feeders seem to recognize that there's just not going to be very many of these calves available. So stronger prices across the board, some of the strongest prices we've seen since 2015. We saw some 4-weight steers at the start of the month, light 4-weights that is, selling above the $3 mark. We haven't seen that in a long time. And I don't know if I'd have believed you if you'd have told me 6 months ago that we'd be selling light 5-weight steers above the $250 mark. But that's certainly where we are right now. Pretty exciting to see what's going on with this feeder market. And as you'd expect, the peaks of the market are usually reached in most seasonal years in the spring. But what comes from here, it's hard to say. I'm certainly optimistic about what we could see out of the video sales this summer and very optimistic for the fall market as well. As we start to look at some of our replacement heifer prices, definitely want to talk about those. Several specials over the last month and more expected to come here. The feeding buyers competed with the replacement heifer buyers. That helped to push prices up. The lighter end of the replacement heifers, no trouble getting up to that $1,300 per head money. And then you get to some of the heavier 7 and 8 weight replacements. They were up to $1,500, a few of them over that mark. So Definitely a lot of demand for replacements, and as you get into those real fancy replacement heifers, the reputation seed stock ranches like Gartner, Deneau, Angus, and Vermilion Ranch, strong prices. Vermilion averaged 25% higher on their replacement heifers, over 4,800 of them too. As you look at these bull sales, these ones on the screen and many across the region, most are 15 to 25, even 35% above year-ago levels, almost tracking with what we're seeing in the futures, averaging 20% above last year. So a lot of demand for quality genetics right now. And you look at some of the tops we've seen, Holden Herefords had 2 bulls sell for $100,000. Cooper Hereford Ranch had one at $125,000, and Vermilion Ranch a new sale high at $132,000. And as we move into the cow market here, there has been strong demand for literally every class of cow you can think of. Of course, bred cows in very strong demand and likely at their peak, of course, now that we're in the calving season. Getting over the $2,000 mark, pretty steady here, and not just the bred heifers and the coming threes, but even some of those older cows, particularly in dispersions and reputation ranches, way over $2,000, and even some of those older cows, $1,500 to $1,800. And open cows, young 2- and 3-year-old stock cows and heiferettes, they're easily selling in the $140 to $150 money in a lot of sales right now, and some above that. So very strong prices. Slaughter cows also strong. We're seeing a lot of them in the high 80 to mid 90 cent money, tops over $1. Now that's a function of ground beef demand that's very strong, and the fact that we're not culling as many cows as we did a year ago, largely a function because of so many were taken off the ranch due to drought, but it's definitely helping to support these slaughter cow prices and helping out these ranches too. I want to wrap up with something a little bit more optimistic here. I compared the drought monitor where we're at right now to where we were a year ago, and just shows you that things are improving. We're not out of the woods yet. We certainly need the spring moisture to continue to come in, but all this snow that we saw over the winter seems to be making a difference and improving conditions. So if it'll stay this way, keep the moisture coming, we could be in for a strong 2023. Thanks so much for joining us for this month's report. As always, you can find more ag news and markets at northernag.net. Take care, friends.